it's finally happening. The inventory levels are finally rising. It depends on, the location, condition, and what's going on in the market. So, everybody in the industry could talk about nothing else but mortgage rates, right? Pricing is a strategy. You can go slightly below market or above market. It's a strategy that you discuss with your realtor and make the best bottom line decisions for yourself. Recession, tariffs, stock market fluctuations, and real estate. Yes, all of this talk about recession and what's going on in the economy and the geopolitical environment is impacting real estate to a certain extent. But I'm here to give you some clarifications, here to give you some information that you can need to make some, decisions for your family that are well informed, based on some statistics, right? So let's start with recession to begin with. When there are fears of recession, everybody worries about the stock market crash. I want to actually point out and say there are two different things. Recession is not a real estate market crash. I know in 2009, the mortgage subprime mess caused that recession. And so everybody equates recession with a real estate market crash. But check this data out here. The recession in the last few decades, the real estate market wasn't as impacted. Of course, the biggest one was the 2009 and 10 market, but we know that was caused by the mortgages where people were approved when they weren't quite qualified to buy the homes. So that recession and real estate market crash went hand in hand. But every other time that we've had a recession, right, the real estate market was doing fine. So separate the real estate, decisions from the recession fears is what the first thing I would say. Now, tariffs, yes, they do impact specific industries. Yes, they will impact, some individuals. So let me give you. I think it is best explained with an example, right? We're in the trenches every day. We're dealing with this buying and selling and the emotional roller coaster that our clients are going through as they buy and sell. And then every day they wake up to some different news, in the news cycle. So recently we heard about, the trade war against China and how China has canceled the Boeing orders, right? So I'm just taking this as an example. So if you're a Boeing employee and you're worried, how would you tackle something like this, right? So first of all, not all Boeing, if it's a local Boeing facility, first of all, not all facilities are equally impacted. And even if you are one of the impacted facilities, the first, thing is, are you even making any real estate decisions right now? Are you looking to buy or are you looking to sell? Maybe most people are not even thinking about making any real estate decisions. So you ride the wave, you wait and watch and see what happens, really. But if you are in the process of making some decisions, are you selling? Are you buying? Are you a downsizing senior? Are you a first-time buyer? All those things matter, right? And the advice that you get is very, very specific to your situation. So if you're in the buyer's market right now, it all depends on how strong your finances are, how much the stock market fluctuation has affected your, down payment and closing costs, how much reserves you may have in case of a job loss, your ability to find another job. All of those things are some things you want to think about before you embark on a buying process right now. Suppose you're a downsizing senior, you have tremendous equity in your home, you don't have any mortgage payments left, you wanted to downsize anyway, you're living on 6 acres with 5,000 plus square feet which you don't need. Well, it is a good time to sell anyway. It is a very strong seller's market. It is still the demand and supply equation is such that demand far exceeds supply. So here we go. This is your opportunity to downsize anyway. It may affect your buying. Yes. Where will you be buying? Would you want to move to a lower cost area now that you have, certain concerns with your finances, or do you want to be closer to your friends and family anyway? So it didn't matter, where you were going to buy. So there's all these anecdotal conversations we're having with buyers and sellers, and a lot, we believe, at least in my experience here, are continuing to move on with their situation. Yes, some people are having, say for example, a client of mine who is a buyer who has a visa and is not a citizen, and they were asking me, is visa a concern, Bela? Immigration policies are changing rapidly. Should I be concerned, right? Well, we talked about it and we said, well, if your range was 450 to 600, maybe you want to look into the 450 to 500 range rather than, overextending yourself to above 600. And secondly, maybe you want to consider neighborhoods where renting is a probability, right? You may ride through this wave and nothing happens. You want to enjoy the home with your family, but if there is a possibility that something, God forbid, happens with your visa situation, the property should be rentable, right? And then you have some kind of options instead of just having to sell. Real estate decisions in the long run always make sense. We're talking about real estate. In fact, some anecdotal information is about how it's great to diversify into the real estate market. With the stock market fluctuations, if that's giving you anxiety and panic attacks, this is a great way to diversify your savings as well. So all of these conversations, tariffs, stock market fluctuations, recession fears, you have to evaluate them, step back, get the information you need, talk to someone like myself, who can give you some guidance in terms of, options you might want to consider, and then, make the decisions with some confidence. And, real estate decisions are all about life changes. You're getting divorced, you're getting married, you need to downsize, you can't take care of your property anymore, you have a baby and you need more space, you have a child who needs to get into a school district. Those are the ones that prompt real estate conversations and decisions. So while there is all the economy factors that play a role, it is the personal factors that often override those external factors. The pricing is a very interesting story as well, and there's some slight changes from what's been happening with prices in the last couple of years. We were expecting the prices to plateau a little bit, maybe grow very slightly. We are seeing that trend. The prices have begun to moderate. Of course, it all depends on, the location, condition, and what's going on in the market. So if your location is excellent and the condition of your home is excellent, if it's a very desirable neighborhood, you're still getting into multiple bids and bidding wars. But, that intensity of the bidding wars has lowered. The prices have moderated a little bit, after all the acceleration that we've been seeing over the last few years. So if you are a seller and if you were unrealistic about the price that your home was going to fetch and you listed it a little high, you're going to have to drop the price before you actually get an offer. This is a very interesting statistics. Check it out. The price cuts have gone back to the previous levels. So in the last couple of years, we didn't see much price cuts at all. Everybody was selling above market, in bidding wars, going higher than asking. But we are seeing the price cuts come back because if you were unrealistic to begin with, you had to adjust it to the market value before you got an offer. So that is a very interesting statistic. And the days on market statistic also is, the days on market are creeping up slightly. Those days of, day 2, day 3 and the property is sold is not true anymore. Yes, now we're seeing a few more days on market than we have seen in the past. So if your property has some negatives, relative to the neighbors' homes that sold at a premium, the buyers are going to let you know, and you're going to find out more about that when you list your home. So, this may be a little bit of hope for the buyers and a word of caution for the sellers to just price it, realistically. Pricing is a strategy. You can go slightly below market or above market. It's a strategy that you discuss with your realtor and make the best bottom line decisions for yourself. It's finally happening. The inventory levels are finally rising. The last couple of years, we've been complaining about there just not being enough homes on the market for the buyers. And that was, causing a very strong increase in prices, the bidding wars, and, just barely no inventory on the market for buyers to choose from. But that equation is slowly shifting now. This is the first quarter of 2025. As predicted, the market is heating up for the spring market. If you had checked my update from January for my predictions on 2025, we're following the right path. It's the exact thing that I predicted a few months ago. We have more inventory on the market. The sellers sort of got tired of waiting. It's been a couple of years. The elections sort of were distracting last year. and the interest rates, the mortgage rates have been distracting, but now it's like time to move on. People buy and sell homes when it's the right time in their lives, so this more and more sellers are listing their homes on the market. They're sitting a little longer. You have to be realistic about the pricing, etc. Here's the thing about mortgage rates. When they were fluctuating at 3 to 4% and they suddenly shot up to 7% and higher, it became the talk of the town. It was what nobody, everybody in the industry could talk about, nothing else but mortgage rates, right? But now that they have been in the sixes for a while, all the hoopla about mortgage interest rates has sort of died down a little bit. There is more, other things to talk about. So people are resigned to the fact that the mortgage rates are now going to be in the sixes, in the mid sixes, and it is what it is. Nobody's expecting anything, different in the next 3 to 6 months or even till next year. So I'm not going into more detail about the market. I just wanted to make this quick video for the first quarter. We are still waiting for the results to come out, and so we can learn some more. But the bottom line is, if you're in the market to buy or sell, get your realtor, get your broker to give you all this information so you can make some informed decisions for your family. If you're looking for more statistics and detailed analysis, check out this video of mine from January, where I've predicted the 2025 real estate market and have a lot more details and graphs and charts over there. So check it out.